So time for the long-awaited trans housing video. So I've been in my position and I've been in DCP housing for I think about 2.5, 3 weeks now, maybe a little bit longer. I'm pretty bad at telling time, but I had been working towards getting the housing accommodations that I have for a decent amount of time before we had even signed up. So for background, as I've mentioned at some point before, I am a trans guy. I was born a woman and identify as a man now. I have not legally changed my gender. I have not had any surgeries. I have been on testosterone for a while though, which is why I no longer look or sound anything like I used to. So because of that, I wasn't really looking to live with women while I am on the DCP, because of some of the stuff that I've experienced in the past. Even before I was on testosterone, I wasn't particularly female presenting, and I had lived with a woman during the first time I went to 2 different universities. I transferred. I didn't take time off or anything. So the first college I was at, my freshman year, I lived with a woman. Sophomore year, first semester, I lived in gender inclusive housing, sort of. But so freshman year of college, I lived with a woman. It was someone I didn't know. It was completely random, sort of like how I was afraid the Disney college program would turn out me living with someone I didn't know who identified as a woman. And that's not necessarily the experience I wanted to have again, because I knew how it turned out the first time and it wasn't particularly great. I didn't really enjoy it for multiple reasons, but part of which was just being a man living with a woman, and not just a man, but being a trans man living with a woman and sort of dealing with that in terms of her perceptions of me, her friends and family's perceptions of me, and everything like that. Very shortly after I was accepted, I started looking for roommates, and I knew from the beginning that I wanted to find people who were trans, whether they were gender nonconforming or trans men, to live with. I didn't necessarily want to live with a trans woman because, again, that's just living with a woman. But for me, to be completely honest, that would be better than living with a cis woman, because to at least some level there's an understanding there about what's going on. I had seen somewhere someone saying that when they did their Disney college program and they identified, I think in the same way that I did, that there was a certain method that they took, not in finding roommates, but in working with housing. So basically what I did, and I think what this other person did as well, was found people they wanted to live with, approached housing and said, listen, here's our situation. These are the exact people I want to live with for comfort's sake and to some level safety's sake. There's not any form of actual medical accommodation you can give here, because Disney works with all forms of medical accommodations when it comes to housing. But is there something you can work out? So that's essentially what I did. I went and I found, I believe, 4 other roommates, not including me, so 5 total, that I would be comfortable with living with. In the list, I believe, were 2 trans men, me included, 2 cis women, and 1 gender nonconforming person. So I knew that there were cis women on the list. To be completely honest, wasn't particularly my choice, but none of them were cisgender and heterosexual. They seemed to understand a lot of things, so it was just sort of okay, this is sort of a still not perfect case scenario, but still a good scenario for me to be living in for 7 months. I think it was about 2 weeks before housing opened up for me that I emailed Disney, and I just emailed through the support email, and I was the one to do it. We didn't have everyone do it because it wasn't necessary, but I was like, hey, listen, this is my situation, haven't had my legal gender marker changed, blah, 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 but I've had experiences before where this stuff has happened, and I have found these people that I am comfortable with. Not all of us have the same gender identity, but we all have the same legal gender marker. I don't know if that helps at all, but just letting you know, and I was curious where we could go from here. Disney was actually very, very quick on getting back to me in terms of that. I think they called me either the day after that, like the next day or the day after that. I talked to a woman who worked with housing. I don't think it was with accommodation specifically. And she said, okay, this is what we're gonna do. You all are gonna sign up for housing, link with as many people as you can, because she didn't even know at the time how many links we would get. And I've heard that when we were signing up, I think we had 3 links total. Like we could live with 3 other people. But I've heard people coming in the not for fall advantage or like even early fall program, if that makes sense, only have 1 or even possibly 0 links. But she said, link with as many people as you can. Send me a list of everyone's names. I think she asked for legal names. I don't remember for sure. I know I sent legal names just because I figured that would be easier. I don't know where Disney stores preferred names at this point. There have been many weird things that have happened in terms of preferred or legal names. Send me a list of your names, and while I can't guarantee anything, like this is how it's gonna work. For me specifically, and this is another extenuating circumstance which I've talked about before, but I am going to talk about it. 2 of the people that were on our original, actually technically 3 of the people that were on our original list ended up not coming in with us. One person we knew about during housing sign up. She told us that she had found some other people she wanted to link. I think, actually no, it wasn't even other people she wanted to link, but she had extended the end of her program, which was totally fine. Because we had gotten emails, I think, previous to when our housing signups had come out saying, if you want to extend your program, you can apply to have that done now. It wasn't like a true extension. It wasn't like months of extension. It was like extending your departure date to some other time in January. So I'm leaving January 3rd. I think she had extended to the 9th. But because we had not signed up for housing yet, when we had gotten our housing emails, they were like, if you have, or actually I think it was when we had gotten the extension email, if you have already signed up for housing, we're still going to like award those links because some of the May arrivals had already signed up. But if you have not yet signed up, you have to have your arrival and departure date the same. So she was like, I've extended my departure date, so I can't link with you guys. Sorry. Wish you the best of luck, basically. Cool. Then we signed up for housing. I linked with as many other people as I could. I sent an email to the same person that I had been working with. She had actually given me her like specific email so I could just keep sending things to her instead of just continuing to put things into the like Disney support thing. And I was like, hey, just signed up for housing, just letting you know. I don't think there was anything she could do at that point. I was just doing that because I have anxiety and I wanted to make sure everything was going to work out well. And very shortly after we signed up for housing, one of the roommates that we had linked with had a family emergency. So they ended up not coming to the DCP at all. And then one of the other people who was in the list, this actually ended up happening much later on. She never actually told us for sure, like even in the group chat that we had made. But she, I think, had either ended up extending or had linked with other people. So housing awarded that link instead of us, because we actually never linked with her. It's a whole thing, not a big deal. So on move-in day, what we ended up with was 2 trans men and then another cis woman, and it was 3 of us in a 5-person room, basically. It was 1 3-bedroom, 1 2-bedroom. That was cool for a while. It was working out pretty well. Well, still is working out pretty well. And so it's 2 of us in the bedroom that I'm in right now. The 2 trans men are here. And then the cis woman is in the other bedroom across the hallway. So that's how that worked. Part of the reason that I waited to make this video, because I was going to make it last week, was that at some point, either early last week or even the week before that, we got an email that we were receiving 2 new roommates, which was a little weird. I don't really know the process that went into like awarding all of this or making all of this work for us. But to the best of my knowledge, what I don't think actually happened, like I don't think they actually made a technical accommodation for us. I don't think they made any label. Because what we were hoping, and especially when the three of us had been talking to each other previously, in regards to the other two beds, what we had been hoping was that those two other beds had been ordained for people who also needed our accommodation. So other transgender non-conforming people or trans men, or really any trans person who just wanted to live with trans people, would have a place to come, whether they were coming in the summer for shorter programs or in the fall. Then we received that email. I contacted the same person who I had been working with before. I still had her contact information. I gave her a phone call and I basically said, hey, we received this email. We don't super know what's going on. We don't know what our apartment has been set as, but we had been hoping that at the very least, especially if people who were coming in didn't need an accommodation, that we would be talked to beforehand. She got back to me the next day and basically said, because those two people didn't move in with you, you had empty beds, so we had to fill them. We labeled your apartment as, well, she didn't say this, but basically we had to label a gender for our apartment. And so we labeled it as female because that was our legal gender. And she was like, we labeled your apartment as female, so we're going to have two women moving in whenever their move-in date was. It was actually this past Monday. And I asked her a few questions, just mostly about them and their program. Not they have tons of personal information or anything, but I was like, can you tell me how many will be? She was like, 2. Can you tell me if they're women? And she was like, to the best of my knowledge, yes, they're cis women. And I was like, can you tell me what sort of program it is? And she was like, they're probably international students, because that is a technically the move-in day that they had was a mostly international student move-in day, and they may be in the culinary program because it was a big culinary day. And that was all she could tell me, which I'm gonna be honest is kind of unfortunate. As much as they had worked with us, not setting an actual accommodation for us and instead just giving us an apartment didn't really work out the way that we had been hoping. I don't completely blame housing for this. A lot of it just happened to be what had happened with the other people we had talked to and linked with, and a lot of it was just sort of out of everyone's control, and it just had to happen. They're not just gonna leave 2 empty beds if there's room for other people and other people need room. But it was unfortunate nonetheless. That's not to say that the 2 girls that have moved in are bad, because they're not. They're actually very kind. I haven't talked to them too much because I've been working a lot this week, but they're very kind, they're very nice. They haven't said anything so far. I don't know if they're talking to anyone else about the situation, because to be completely honest, I didn't really know how to broach the topic of the fact that I'm trans and also a guy living here. So I haven't really talked to them about that. But they're very kind, they're very sweet. It's just unfortunate that that's how housing had to work with it. But even in talking to them, I've learned that the end of their program is mid-August, which means that we are probably getting 2 new roommates after they leave, potentially women. So I don't really know how that's going to work. To be completely honest, I'm kind of hoping to find someone who is moving in who has an identity like mine, who's moving in September or something, so I can contact that woman and be like, hey, this person would really like to live with us, just out of the same reasons that we made this apartment in the first place. Can we have them move in? And while it may not be 2, it may not fill the apartment, it'll be a little bit better, just because it still feels a little bit uncomfortable for me to be living here, just with the current circumstances. But it's not completely uncomfortable. I have a room, and it's not I'm sharing the room with one of the girls. I have the room with my other trans guy roommate, and we get along really well. So it's not to say that it's awful, because it's not. It's just unfortunate. But to be honest, moral of the story is just reach out to Disney in terms of getting things done, because at least for me, they've been really, really helpful. I'm hoping that things continue to work out in terms of this. There's still a few more trans-specific stuff that I have to do that I haven't really had time for, or even more realistically, I haven't really had the energy for, but hopefully we'll figure it out. Anyway, I'll see you next time.